Hello, everybody. I'm here with the lovely John Toomey, who is currently in Melbourne, Australia. We started recording this on some podcast software, and it didn't quite work out. So we've gone back to Zoom because that's a trusted old companion now after 18 months of usage. It's evening time where you are, isn't it, John?
It is, yes. It's like about 7:36 p.m. on Tuesday evening, 13th of July.
And we're still in lockdown in Melbourne, or are we opened up?
Now, Melbourne's in great shape, but we in fact had our first 2 cases of community transmission of COVID today for about, 5 weeks, I think. But Sydney's in big trouble. Sydney's gone into hard lockdown, and typical of Sydney-siders, they're struggling to get people to behave up there. So their lockdown's going to get extended and extended and extended, I think. Yeah.
Are you allowed to travel into state at the moment then? Or is you're not?
Closed. And
right.
Sydney-siders are not allowed near Melbourne. And and the only reason we've got these 2 cases in Melbourne is because a couple of removalists moved suddenly from Sydney down to Melbourne, and they brought the virus with them. So luckily they jumped on it and contained it pretty quickly. But so it's interesting. But Melbourne's had a lot of lockdowns. We've had 4 lockdowns. Our longest lockdown went for 4 months.
Wow. Yeah.
We know what it's like to be in lockdown. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we as we sit here today, in 2 or 3 days' time, in theory, the UK is opening up and no holds barred. So we'll wait and see what that results in. We've got rising infection rates at the moment, so not quite sure how that's all going to work, but
it's got to be experimented with. I mean, I listen to Michael Ryan from the WHO, and he says a lot of good things. And here in Australia, apart from Sydney, we've been pretty much COVID-free for a long time. And we've been very slow with our vaccination take-up, and whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. But then you look at some countries like India and South Africa, it's beyond terrible.
I know
what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's very sobering.
So has the pandemic made you look at life differently?
Not really, not for me. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I'm just a person who's driven by curiosity. And when this pandemic came along, there's so many things happen, from people hoarding toilet tissue to people getting caught up in conspiracy theories. And boy, some of those conspiracy theories are entertaining as all hell, And then, these push from America that China created the virus in a lab, and the lab they're talking about is a French lab, it's not even Chinese, And then the more rational perspectives that talk about how we've just destroyed agricultural soils right across the planet, and viruses are the flashback from that, So I've sort of treated it with a little bit of intrigue and interest. And I've actually found it quite joyful seeing how people have sort of responded, and how big cities like Melbourne have become these series of connected communities, not big cities anymore. So, and I was living alone for a lot of the time, so I couldn't really see anybody, but that's never really bothered me a lot. I'd still go out for a run in the mornings and that sort of thing. But there are other people it's destroyed their lives. They haven't coped well with it at all. They've lost their businesses, or just the loneliness got to them. And then there's other situations where I'm sure where people from a financial perspective were able to keep a lid on secrets that they've been sitting on for a long time, gambling debts, those sorts of things. And when their business is closed, there's nothing to hide behind anymore. And I'm sure there's a lot of devastation related to those sorts of things. So, it hasn't really affected me other than just piqued my curiosity as to what happens with humanity. But I do feel compassion for a lot of people who have been really badly affected by it.
Yeah, it's been a real case of extremes, hasn't it? It really has. And I should actually introduce you. What do you actually do, John?
I chat to strange women on Zoom.
I know, yes. No, come on, not so strange. We've been in communication before. We've just never met. We were going to meet when I was in Australia and we didn't quite make it work, but yeah.
Make it work. So, okay, so I've been working in human wellness for decades. I first heard the term wellness in 1984. So I've done a lot of things, everything from developing computer software that's related to health and wellbeing, through to working in high performance roles as high performance manager in elite sport, including working with some Australian cricketers, and also lecturing in universities, teaching wellness in medical departments in universities. And but always exploring and learning and evolving. I started out in physical education, and I've delivered well over 3,000 seminars on wellness in corporate arena in Australia and overseas. And for the last 12 months, I've sat as global chair of the Workplace Wellbeing Initiative at the Global Wellness Institute, which resides in Miami. So been doing a lot of work on a global scale this last year. And part of the projects that we're doing is we're trying to create a set of standards that organisations can align themselves with to create wellbeing programs in workplaces. So yeah, it's pretty busy.
Oh, wow. How does that align with the new, we did a webinar on the new ISO 45003. Is that a standard that you're allied with? How does that work in terms of what you're doing?
It's so interesting because we're up and running and developing our standards, and then we became aware of 45,003. And so then I did some web conversations with the authors of that fabulous document. And really, we're not trying to compete with that, but we're looking at the other areas of wellness that it's not looking at, you know.
Oh, okay.
Turn to work, to education and people development and things like, and even, you know, discussing work-life balance. We realize that that's such a corny term, you know, what is that? And, you know, when we really got down to it, it's a personal integrity issue. You know, what are you deciding? What do you want in your life? And where are you giving over power to other people instead of taking back your own power and making your own decisions? So, yeah, so it's interesting. And, you know, looking at the whole case of what about the work environment when a person's working from home? What do they need in terms of equipment and those sorts of things? So, yeah, it's interesting.
Gotcha. So it works alongside. I'll definitely have to have a look at you because I didn't know that you were existing, and that would be great to be allied in some way. Work-life balance is a great one, actually. It's really interesting for me at the moment. I'm very conscious as a 52-year-old woman in the sandwich generation of how the changes that you go through your life will basically dictate where you want to give your energy at any given time and where you can give your energy at any given time. I remember in my 20s, I was traveling all around the world, working really long hours, absolutely loving it. And now I've got a dad in a nursing home very close by. I have to visit 2 or 3 times a week. I've got a daughter with obsessive compulsive disorder. A lot of cognitive work for me involved in making sure that everything is, you know, the routines are followed and whatever else. And also I'm menopausal, and those 3 things together mean that actually I don't want to work as much. I want to kind of be much more, you know, contained about the number of days, the number of hours that I work. And I can see this among lots of my friends of a similar age that we're at, and I know I will want to work again. You know, it's just one of those times in life, isn't it? How do you think businesses actually accommodate things like that? You know, the different phases we have in our lives.
Well, it's pretty simple. The business says to the employee, what do you want to do? How do you intend to do that? How can we make it work? And then follow that. You know, like we've got this cookie cutter idea that a person should work 40 hours a week and they should start at 8 and finish at 5. And really, even though we're paying them for 40 hours a week, they should be doing closer to 50. But they're all areas where life has gotten so out of integrity.
Mm.
But you've got responsibilities.
Mm.
And, the challenge is that workplaces, on top of your responsibilities, obligations have been placed there. And obligation and responsibility are very different things.
Oh, can you explain that distinction to me?
Well, responsibility is you keeping to your agreements. An obligation is somebody trying to get you to do something on their terms. But you see, if I come and get a job with you and I say to you, look, I'm prepared to give you 30 hours a week and I'm going to cost you £50 an hour, and, but I'm going to produce these results. And you look at that and you go, I'm happy with that. So, right, we've got an agreement.
Mm.
Now, then, if you, and I deliver you my 30 hours a week and I deliver the results, but then somebody else says to you, hey, he comes and goes, he leaves early, and then you come and say to me, look, other employees are getting a bit uncomfortable because of the hours that you're doing. You're trying to place an obligation on me. But, you in that moment, you've got to say to the other people, he's keeping his agreements with me. Are you keeping your agreements that you have with me?
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so responsibility is all of us making agreements and keeping our agreements.
Mm.
Obligation is where there's something else trying to impose something upon us. And so, even your daughter's OCD could be an obligation that she's placing upon you. Now, you decide how you want to deal with that, and what time and effort you want to put into that. And once you get clear on that, and you make that agreement with yourself that this is what I'm going to do, and you say to your daughter, this is when I'm available, this is what I'm going to do, then that's your responsibility to keep up that end of the agreement, or to renegotiate the agreement if it's not working for you. Yeah.
I really like that, actually. It's really simple. And I forget that sort of thing. I forget it in the pain of being the mother of someone who's in anguish. It's difficult to remember.
You did say you're menopausal, right?
Yeah, as well. Yeah. On top of it all, I mean,
Can I ask you, how does your daughter's OCD manifest itself?
Right now, it's compulsions around hand washing, showering, clothes, contaminated clothes, where she sits, what she wears. I've bought her 7 of everything, and there's never anything that she can wear because it's all contaminated. Even if you wash it, it doesn't work. It's still contaminated. So and the showers can be 2 hours long. She can use liters of shower gel in one go. So I kind of have that rationed, and I turn the hot water off after a while, and we have a kind of agreement around that. I'm working my way around it. I'm working my way towards, but it's quite a big thing to get your head around. When it also, she's not doing it on purpose, but also it's profoundly annoying.
Yes. Oh, but my first wife had OCD, and it was extraordinary. And cognitive behavioral therapy is good. Drugs is the wrong way to go.
It's funny. My sister has OCD too, and she's been taking drugs for it for the last 10 years, and they've worked really well for her. But my daughter's seeing a therapist, and he says, because she's also high functioning autistic, he says that it's basically the cause of the OCD is because of my mum died out of the blue. My dad's got Alzheimer's and behaves inappropriately. I've been all over the shop because of everything I've been dealing with. I'm her normal rock. And therefore it's trauma that's at the root of her OCD. So he's working with her on the trauma.
Yeah, so it's a control issue. And but it's really interesting. There's a really interesting organisation here called Mind Health Australia.
Yeah.
And they're really pushing for the use of psilocybin with people like your daughter.
Psilocybin. Okay.
Yeah, magic mushrooms.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
They've had a lot of success. It's really worth having a look at. Yeah.
I will be looking at that. I will be looking. But going back to our workplace discussions, because I'd love to talk to you about my daughter with OCD. But right, yeah. So
the vending machine, yeah.
One of the big, I was really interested in what you said in terms of this distinction between responsibilities and obligations, because I can see that a lot of pain is caused for people by these obligations outside of their responsibilities. And so what we tend to see as the biggest stress-related issue for people that we talk to is that they have too much work to do, too many priorities, too much piled on them. And when I say to them, so have you had a conversation with your manager? Have you talked about priorities? Have you actually said, look, there's only how many hours in a day, what do you want me to do first, this, or I'm getting all this rained on me? Mostly they say no, or they say, I tried, nothing happened. For me, there's a kind of, it's very difficult to find that adult to adult communication going on within an organization, that we become like children, don't we, where we've got our boss piling stuff on us. And the boss isn't being a bad boss on purpose, by the way. I don't believe. I think they're just, you're not squeaking, so they're continuing to give you stuff to do because they think they can. But actually we need to kind of become more adult when we're talking to that manager, don't we?
Well, we're all human beings. And the thing is that if somebody's got power over you, somebody had to give it to them. Well, they can't just take it. Yeah. Like you have to give them that power. And whatever it is that we have this thing about needing the approval of our boss, or this fear of being fired or whatever, basically, when we go into those places, we're saying that we're not in control of our own lives, but that's the great lie. That's such a great lie, And the reality is that we do have to take responsibility for our own lives. And if we're finding ourselves, we've got a job where we're expected to work from 8 till 5:30, and we find ourselves in the office until 7 p.m. 3 nights in a row, something's not working. No, either we're not working hard enough, or we're bludgeoning during the day, or we're being distracted, or there's too much work. And if it's too much work, it's our responsibility to step up and say, boss, I can't do it all. I've got a family. I've got to go home. I've tried everything. There's too much. We need to find a better route here. If you don't say anything, it means you're in agreement with it. And you're making it okay. And, and if you speak up to your boss and say, look, this is not on, I need some help, and you can do it in a very positive way, and you get fired, well, why would you want to work for an organization like that anyway? Right, really? Why would you want to work with somebody who's got no heart? But the reality is most people have got good hearts.
Yes, yeah.
And the thing is, there's a power flow here. See, if I work for an organization, and let's just say I'm working in a middle level management, and I've got a manager above me, and above that manager, there's another senior manager, and above that, there's the CEO. And I go to my manager because I know that I'm in integrity with myself, and there's too much work being put on me, and I can't do it, and I'm letting the organization down because I can't do this work. And, who knows what's happening to this work. And I speak to my boss, and my boss dismisses it and basically gives me the bum's rush. Well, then why wouldn't I email my boss and CC in the people above my boss and say, look, I want to bring up the fact that we talked about this and you didn't hear what I had to say. And this is important because this is the success of the company that's dependent upon this work being done. And you're demanding that I do it, whereas I actually can't physically do this work anymore. And I do have a life I have to live. So we need to come up with a better plan and do it from a place of contributing to the benefit of the company, not making it right wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things don't have to be conflict. Because if I'm in a situation with somebody and things are going against me and there's a little bit of unfairness, I can make it about how awful that is for me. Or I can step up and say, do you realize that when you're doing that, you're affecting the organization, and this organization can't move forward the way it does, the way it should, whilst you're doing that? So you make it about yourself, make it about the direction that everyone's going.
That's beautiful. And that's a much easier way for somebody to put it, isn't it? Without getting angry and upset. And yeah. We talked earlier on about this idea of attention. And I'm very struck when you're speaking about the kind of the way that as human beings we function, in terms we get onto this wheel and we're kind of like on this hamster wheel and we just keep going, don't we? And prior to the pandemic, it was commute, go to be there 9 to 5, commute, do stuff when you get home, and we were frazzled. And then we kind of all got to come off the treadmill and look at it again. And I sense that, well, we're going back in the UK now, and I sense that it won't be long before we end up back in that whole treadmill again. How do we, as human beings, catch ourselves and then start to look at our living with intention? Where is our attention being focused? How do we do that?
So interesting, isn't it? It's like you could be climbing a tree and you can have one of two thoughts running through your mind. You could be thinking, oh, I'm high off the ground here, I might fall. This is really dangerous, and overcome with fear. Or the other one, you could be thinking, wow, look how high I'm getting, and look at the view. This is amazing. I think I'll get a little bit, how high can I get here to get the best view? Like there's two viewpoints on the same thing. There's multiple viewpoints on things. And I think that, I believe, and I've got to preface this by saying that, in 2005, I mentioned this before, I did an avatar course, and an avatar course is a 9-day course where you're exploring consciousness, and there's nobody telling you what you should find, and there's no expectations of what you'll discover. You're discovering your own consciousness. And the tools are very powerful, and most people have a very powerful awakening, and you realize that your life is created. You create what you put your attention on. And what you put your attention on is really dependent on the strength of your will. So where you decide you want your attention to be. So if I decide to put my attention on how good is the view that I can see, then I can put all of my efforts into getting as high on that tree as I can. But if I put my attention on the likelihood that I'm going to fall, best case scenario is I'm not going to enjoy the view, and worst case scenario is I'm going to fall. And so really we put ourselves into these places where we lock ourselves into a viewpoint that's really limited. And COVID's done something really great, because in most big cities in the world, I remember being in Mexico City for a conference and walking along the street, and I was walking and I was out doing all the traffic, and every car, the person had their smartphone attached to the steering wheel, and they're all on Facebook while they're sitting in the traffic. There's nothing else to do, right? So every city in the world had given up on trying to solve the problem of peak hour traffic or rush hour traffic. And then COVID came along and it was gone. It's gone. And all of a sudden people have got extra time in their days, and it's like we realize that, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, that's how you fix that. But we get these ideas and we limit ourselves in our thinking, and we cut off all of our options. When I was studying physical education, we were doing a subject called the theoretical foundations of physical education. And we got into these really great philosophical discussions. And we're talking here 1978. PCs didn't arrive until 6 years later. And we were talking about how computers were going to come along, and they're probably going to take a lot of people's jobs. And we thought that our industry would be very busy helping people work out how to use their leisure time. Amazing, right?
I remember that. I remember the whole was it Charles Handy and the umbrellas, and the fact that we were all going to be having so much leisure time, we didn't know what we were going to be able to do. We were going to have to be worrying about how we're going to use that. It's unbelievable.
And
So
exactly,
wrong.
but none of the science fiction writers predicted the internet.
No.
Nobody predicted the size of the IT industry that was going to come with computers.
Yeah.
Nobody saw social media coming.
No.
Apps. And see, the thing is, it's like, we think that if an industry dies, that's it. There's going to be a tenth of the workforce that haven't got a job anymore because that industry died. But we forget the power and the amazing and the wonderful capacity for human beings to create. And we come up with new stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, if you had have told me in 1982, when I was managing gyms, that people would be charging $100 an hour to personal train people, I would have said, you're stupid. Nobody's going to do that. But look at it now.
I know.
So we get caught up and we think that the future is not going to be any different to what it is now.
Yeah. I completely hear you. I mean, I remember when I was working full time and I had this germ of I want to be running my own business. I felt this almost kind of, I knew I had to do it. It was just one of those weird things where I just thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to be really disappointed in myself. I've got to make it happen. And, but I thought I can't afford it because I was on a really good salary. And, you know, and I'm really appreciated. I'm on a really good track where I am. They really like me. I'm going to be doing really well. And I was already doing really well. And it was like, you know, and I couldn't see beyond it. And then I sat down, I wrote all the numbers down on a piece of paper. I worked out I could live on a third of what I was earning. And I also just thought, I've got to do this. And as soon as I'd done it, the world just looked so different because you didn't have to get on a train, do that and then come home and get paid for it. You could instead get paid for half a day, or it just, everything looks so different, and you can choose when you work. But that wasn't even a possibility for me. I couldn't see it. You can't, can you?
No, it's you know, a huge percentage of the population of the Western world, I would guess, go off to a job every day that they don't like. They're bored out of their minds, but the pay packet's pretty good. So with that pay packet, they can pay for things to entertain themselves, to relieve themselves of their boredom.
Yes.
But they never, ever, ever touch the core of their being and the depth of the passion that's there somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
Once you have that as well, in terms of kind of working with meaning, with purpose, with something you love within your strengths, so much else in life for me sort of just slots into place. You have this core of happiness, for me at least, which means that some of the other things don't matter quite as much. But we were talking also earlier about the multi-dimensional way that, you know, multifaceted ways that human beings get happy and get well. And the kind of the way that we tend to focus on certain things like fitness, nutrition, you know, those things that are kind of like on the surface, but actually we're all very different. And you know, for me, good work makes me incredibly happy. And, you know, it will be different for different people, won't it? It's hugely different, hugely diverse.
Well, happiness is a decision. It's not an outcome. It doesn't come from anything. Now, for somebody who's looking for happiness out there in the world, that might seem really strange, and it could be very confusing. And I don't mean for it to sound arrogant, but, you know, most people have got no control over their minds. Their minds are thinking, you know, fretting over things, going crazy, and they can't find peace. and they go to bed at night and maybe they need to drink alcohol to get to sleep, or they take some sort of sleep medication or something. And all of those things take away that capacity. And well, they take away your capacity to just be who you are. And when we find that place where we can just finally relax and be who we are, we feel happy. It's not rocket science. It's, it is possible in this 21st century to live with a deeply quiet mind and feel peace in your heart, even when nothing's working out.
That's hard.
Well, it is hard if you don't know how. But if you get the right support and you follow the right path, monks laugh at Westerners.
I bet they do. Yes.
Very entertaining, but I got to that place a long time ago, and to live my life from that place, it doesn't mean I'm special. It just means I'm very lucky that I got to do the right work, and to just, even when things are going terribly wrong on so many levels, and like, for example, my work completely shut down when COVID hit, because I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, and I didn't get work for a very long time. Now, I could have started to fret and get worried about it, or I'd just choose to go, wow, this is a situation I'm in. Okay, well, I'm still happy. Well, what do I need to do from here? And approach it from a creative standpoint, not, as you were talking about before, about a reactive standpoint. And, reacting is good if your life's in danger. The rest of the time, it's a bad plan.
Yeah. So organizations, it's complicated, isn't it, to address well-being in an organization, when actually it's about culture, isn't it? It's about the work they do, the way they do it. You can't just go in and say, well, here's a nice little intervention for you. You'll be fine now. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I think that, and I've looked at this for a long time, and if I hear of people doing biometric testing and that sort of thing in wellness programs, I start growing hair on my palms, It's like, that's not where it's at. Human beings need to evolve, and we have to reclaim our humanity and the qualities of what it is to be a good human being. And that's following virtues like kindness and gratitude and selfless service to others, and encouragement and acknowledgement, being trustworthy and giving people trust, supporting others.
You're going back to Aristotle there.
Well, yeah, but it's like, it's all real, because we're all human beings. Because, one of the greatest feelings of all time is when somebody looks at you and says, you know what, I can depend on you and I trust you. That's an extraordinary feeling when somebody. So what happens if, organizations decide, okay, we've got this team of human beings here, we're going to support them to continue to develop and become the best versions of themselves that they can become. They're diverse, they're all different. But if everybody is learning to live and work from a good intention, and they're aligned with the mission of the business, they'll bring their own qualities to it. I reckon it's, somebody said to me, what's a way that you can start a wellness program without a budget?
Yeah.
So just start getting everybody and working on being more kind. That'll do it. And it's like, if a company is really clear on its mission, and a lot of companies, I read their mission statements and I go, oh my God, that's not your mission, that's a description of what you do. You know what I mean? Like, for an example, Dulux, which is a very big paint company here in Australia.
Yeah.
And I said to them, what do you do? And they said, we make paint. I said, well, yeah, but what do you deliver to humanity? And they said, we make paint. I said, no, making paint's what you do. What do you deliver to humanity? And we really drilled down on it. Eventually we got to realize that they facilitate the creation of spaces where people can be how they want to be. Colour is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
You know, and when they landed that, I went, oh,
yeah,
I can see how my job impacts human beings, you know, and then from there, it's a different ballgame, you know, but so when companies have got their mission really clear, how does what we do impact other human beings? And when you've got that part right, people could align their own intentions with that. And all the diverse, different human being, some with OCD, some with, you know, some are artistics or whatever it is, doesn't matter. They'll all bring their piece and it'll work. But the management have got to trust that that can happen instead of trying to control it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can either manage people by trying to control their heads, or you can lead them by touching their hearts.
That's a beautiful expression. I love that. I think we're living through such an interesting period, aren't we? When you think about it, you know, 50 years ago, the rules were set, you know, there was God, there was, you know, there was the government, there was the, you know, this is the way your life is. This is how you are supposed to live. And we've got this massive tension that's arisen now between where there's the rules, all bets are off. And basically we've got massive polarized opinions, haven't we? But I feel so hopeful for humanity. And I think that this is just such an interesting period, which we're really lucky to be alive now to see this, aren't we?
It's exciting, I reckon. Humanity is moving forward, but it doesn't do it in an orderly manner.
No.
It's, you know, for all of your listeners, if ever they get a chance to read any articles written by Harry Palmer.
Harry Palmer.
He's, you know, like his viewpoints on the world and humanity are extraordinary. They're so broad, you know. And I'm not saying Harry's right. It's not about who's right or wrong, but he's just got beautiful ways of looking at it, you know, and really from a perspective as human beings, as creators of their own reality, you know.
Well, honestly, it's really warmed my heart speaking to you this morning. It really, really, this evening for you, this morning for me, but it's been so lovely. Thank you so much. John, I'm just wondering, the references for your, the Institute, for example, if maybe you give them to me, I can put those in the room afterwards in the vault so that people can have access to those. And any other things that you think would be helpful for people to read?
Yeah, well, certainly the Wellness at Work initiative, or which we've just changed now to the Workplace Wellbeing Initiative at the Global Wellness Institute.
Yeah.
I'll give you a link to our page on LinkedIn. Perfect. And people can follow that so that when we've got when we're ready to publish the documents that we're working on, then we can, the standards, then people can access those. And we will be running some webinars where we're introducing these standards to the world. So lovely. That's going to be pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah. John Toomey, thank you so much for talking to me today. I've absolutely loved it.
Hey, Heather, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. So maybe we need to talk again sometime.
Definitely. I'd love to talk to you again. Definitely. Thank you.
And over there, I hope everybody recovers from what happened in the Euro, and, you know, life's looking up.
Oh, definitely. I'm just so proud of our team. They were just so lovely.
They probably needed to bring Ben Stokes on to take those shots, I think. You know.
We'll leave it there. Thank you, John. Bye-bye.